Revealed, how one cold date with a single dad CEO transformed a girl's life in 30 days. Emma could feel the weight of her student loans pressing down on her shoulders, heavy and relentless. At 24, her life was a tangle of assignments, over-caffeinated nights, and the frantic pace of her part-time job at the local coffee shop. Laughter bubbled around her at the cafe, but she couldn't shake the feeling that everyone else was moving forward, while she was stuck. Her friends, brimming with opportunities and connections, barely acknowledged the late-night hustle she endured. They invited her out, desperate to distract her from her plight, and this blind date was their latest attempt to set up, full of hope yet trembling with anxiety. Sitting across from Jake, the man they had chosen for her, Emma felt the chill of silence. He was handsome, sharp-edged, but those blue eyes bore the guarded look of a man who had already fought battles, and she couldn't help but feel the divide between them. She wondered what he saw when he looked at her, a graduate student drowning in debt or a hopeful woman straining against the confines of her reality. A single father and CEO, he had likely traversed a world far removed from her struggles. Their worlds collided awkwardly, moments slipping away like grains of sand. Then, conversation shifted. Jake began to share anecdotes about his 3-year-old daughter and the bittersweet challenges of co-parenting post-divorce. As he spoke, Emma found herself unspooling her own story. She confessed her fears of failing, of feeling forever unheard, and to her surprise, Jake listened intently. He had a way of drawing out her thoughts, illuminating pathways she never saw before. She could see glimmers of her untapped potential reflected in his eyes. It felt invigorating. For the first time in ages, she felt herself wanting more than just survival. She yearned to thrive. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks as their mentor-mentee relationship blossomed. With Jake's insights into business strategy, Emma found herself reinvigorated in her studies, confident yet vulnerable. Yet as her horizon expanded, a storm brewed on the other side of it. She stumbled across alarming information regarding unethical practices within Jake's company, practices that put the livelihoods of countless employees, including those of her childhood friends, at risk. Emma felt the ground beneath her tremble. The weight of her findings coiled tightly around her chest. Loyalty to a mentor who believed in her flickered against the growing ache of justice. She recalled the laughter shared with her friends, their dreams whispered in the glow of summer nights. How could she betray Jake? But how could she turn a blind eye? Torn between admiration and obligation, her mind raced with disbelief. Just as uncertainty stole her breath, the phone rang. It was an employee living in dread beneath Jake's empire, begging for support, for someone to speak out. Emma, we need to talk. Jake's voice cut through her thoughts as he materialized before her, casting shadows over the crossroads. She stood at a moment of truth, where decisions lingered heavy in the air. As she met his gaze, she wrestled with her choice. Her entire world was on the verge of fracturing, and she had to decide. Would she dare to embrace the truth, or would she risk it all for the mentor who believed in her? Emma felt her heart race as Jake's eyes bore into hers, a mix of concern and determination. The way he stood before her, half an angel and half a specter, represented the potential for both growth and betrayal. Emma, you seem distant today, he prompted, his tone nonchalant yet probing. Her throat constricted, and Emma could hardly conceal the tumult within. The flickering flame of hope that had ignited during their conversations now battled the gusting winds of despair. I've been thinking about everything, she managed, her voice trembling as she let the words unfurl. I've learned so much from you. Good, he replied, but there was an edge to his voice now, a knowing glint that raised the hairs on the back of her neck. Caught in the whirlwind of emotions, Emma replied, but what if I told you that there are things happening at your company that I don't think are right? Even as she formed the words, a part of her recoiled. Did she truly have the courage to confront him, or was she merely going to fracture their tenuous connection? Jake stepped back, surprise etching deep lines across his forehead. What do you mean? What have you heard? It's not just rumors, Jake. I have proof. I've spoken to people, she urged, trying to infuse conviction into her shaky declarations. Each raw word fell like a bombshell in the space between them. They feel trapped, fighting against policies that threaten their livelihoods. For a moment, silence enveloped them both, a suffocating blanket that reflected her dread and his dawning realization. In Jake's eyes, she could see the complex gears turning, the conflicting emotions playing out in real time. You're wrong, he finally said, though his voice lacked the force of certainty. I won T. Have you believed that? I'm trying to create opportunities here. Opportunities for whom, Jake? For you? Or for the company at the expense of others? The confrontation hung in the air, the weight of her stubborn resolve challenging his corporate facade. A flicker of anger crossed his face, it ignited a shift in her perspective. This was no longer about mentorship. It was about integrity. The line between ally and adversary blurred, her actions now driven by the echoes of old friendships and the principles she cherished. As Emma stood firm, she felt a clarity blossoming within. She was no longer the quiet girl battling her own struggles, she had unearthed a strength she'd hidden under layers of doubt. Each heartbeat echoed in her chest like a challenge she would not back down, not when the stakes were so high. Would you dismiss the cries of those who trusted you? Emma pressed on, her voice steadying. She could see Jake recoiling, his connection to her suddenly intertwined with something darker, a potential fallout she hadn't fully anticipated. How fragile his world seemed as the ties of loyalty were fraying like old fabric under tension, exposing raw threads beneath. What transpired next would dictate the course of both their lives. Could Jake confront the ethical standards he once cherished in youthful ambition? Or would he cling to the persona he'd carefully built, exposing his vulnerabilities in stark contrast to the unwavering confidence he projected? It was a question that loomed large as she watched him grapple with indecision, the shadow growing ever larger between them. Emma, you have no idea what you're risking, Jake said, his voice low, barely concealing a tremor of fear masquerading as authority. Do you? She shot back, aware that every choice now mattered. For the first time, the personal stakes felt monumental, urging her to step into the unknown. As so many thoughts collided, just as focus narrowed into a troubling resolution, another call came through, this time a confidential tip to support her position. Could she utilize this evidence to stand firm, exposing truths that could shatter his facade? Or would loyalty win out over integrity as the balance of power shifted dramatically before her? As Emma stood on the precipice of her decision, the phone vibrated again, an unexpected twist emerging in her. Spiraling reality, guiding her toward a choice that could alter both their futures forever. The vibration of the phone was like a jolt of electricity, drawing Emma's attention away from Jake and the turbulent exchange that unfolded between them. She glanced at the screen, her heart pounding as curiosity mingled with anxiety. A message from an anonymous number flashed, hinting at information that could either fortify her position or unearth a deeper danger. With a moment's hesitation, she opened the message, a series of ominous phrases about illicit practices within the company, evident misconduct, and names she vaguely recognized. A knot tightened in her gut as each line unfolded, bringing forth the shadows that had long loomed over the corporate structure. I can't believe this, she muttered under her breath, reeling from the implications of what this could mean. Jake, still standing before her, caught her shift in focus. What is it? He pressed, his voice laced with a new kind of urgency. Although his stance appeared defiant, an undercurrent of worry seeped through, suggesting that he too sensed gravity in this moment. Emma faced the crossroads of unbearable weight. This was a crucial juncture. Should she confront him further with this newly acquired knowledge or navigate the slippery slope of corporate gamesmanship? A visceral battle within her ensued, as fear wrestled with ambition. Jake, I just received some information. The air snapped taut with unvoiced truths as she deliberated whether to unveil the newfound evidence. Sharing would signify bravery, but it might also provoke a backlash that she could not foresee. Her lips parted, yet the words evaporated into the charged atmosphere. Anyone who knows about the company's missteps would first want to test their sources, wouldn't they? She countered herself, the words running through her mind like a rebellious mantra. Am I just another pawn in this twisted corporate chess game? Jake's presence loomed large, yet so did the potential consequences of breaching this sudden impasse. Something deep within her stirred, reminding her that she had not come this far just to retreat into silence. Striking a balance between self-preservation and a commitment to integrity felt strained. The stakes were rising. Emma, if you have something to say, just say it, Jake urged, a flash of frustration breaking through his more composed exterior. The truth of her thoughts pressed against her like an iron weight. The revelation ignited a flicker of determination. Emma squared her shoulders, her voice momentarily steady as she drew on years of muted confidence she had finally unearthed. This isn't just an industry problem or a rumor anymore, Jake. It's personal. Real people are hurting, and I can't choose to ignore that. Silence settled between them like a heavy fog, but within her, clarity crystallized. Each heartbeat pulsed with a newfound certainty, casting away hesitation like fallen leaves in autumn's wind. This was not merely a confrontation, it was the beginning of her ascent. Resolving to act on her knowledge, Emma felt a fierce sense of ownership over her path. She would use the evidence she had just received to illuminate the truth hidden beneath the polished veneer Jake represented. But with this choice came uncertainty. Would Jake rise to the occasion and meet her in this moral battle, or would he retreat, solidifying her worst fears about his character? In that fleeting moment, the tumult in her gut was replaced by conviction. The fear of what would unfold next thrust her forward, the reality now clear. Her courage was no longer optional, it was essential, every second ticking down to the inevitable confrontation of ethics at play. Let's take a look at that text together before we jump to conclusions. There's a lot you don't know, Jake finally said, his voice low but insistent. As she processed his words and the shifting dynamics of their partnership, new questions tightened around her resolve. What was Jake ready to reveal? Would he stand by her side, or further away before the impending storm? Emma's heart raced once more as she prepared to dive into the depths of the unknown, an abyss filled with possibilities that could either make or break her emerging sense of self. The moment of reckoning was upon her. What truths lay hidden behind the walls of Jake's corporate empire, and would they lead her to victory or destruction? Emma felt the weight of expectation pressing down as she and Jake moved away from the buzz of the conference floor and into the quieter solitude of his office. Everything seemed amplified: the click of her heels against the polished tiles, the soft hum of the air conditioning, even the thud of her own heart. She was caught in a whirlwind of emotion, battling the echoes of doubt while clinging to her newfound resolve. Sitting across from Jake, she noticed the tension etched into his brow. He was composed yet visibly strained, indicative of the tightrope he walked between corporate loyalty and moral rectitude. His eyes flicked towards the screen, and Emma sensed an intimacy or perhaps a threat hanging in the air. "Let us see it," she said, forcing her voice to remain steady. Her pulse quickened at the prospect of uncovering secrets that could potentially destabilize everything she thought she knew. He hesitated, pulling his laptop closer as the blue light glinted off its surface. It was a decision that could either unify or fracture them, and the clock ticked on, amplifying the urgency. He clicked away, revealing the document that had languished within the depths of the company's intranet. Emma leaned closer, her breath barely restricted and excitement coursing through her. Lines of text slowly appeared, each revelation unspooling potential narratives of unethical dealings, hidden cover-ups, and forged documents. It was a Pandora's box of betrayal, a playground for corrupt power dynamics that had allegedly been at play within the firm for years. Every detail resurrected a familiar fear in Emma, the kind that had long haunted her across varying landscapes of her career. But within that trepidation, she felt a prickling of empowerment, a reminder that she was no longer an observer but an active player. "That's quite a lot," Jake said, his voice almost a whisper, as if acknowledging they both stood on the precipice of something monumental. "Are you going to deny this?" Emma demanded, half a plea, half a challenge. Would he stand in solidarity with her or retreat into the shadows of self-preservation? The moment felt charged, history awaited their collective decision. He stared at her, his features unreadable, yet something flickered in her gut, determination. Look, Emma, you need to understand how deep this goes. These names, he gestured toward the screen, they're not just collateral, they're connected. People like us, people who VE invested everything. If we act too hastily it could blow back on us in ways we can't anticipate, he argued, though the softness of his voice seemed contradictory to the intensity of his words. Emma felt the air thicken with every revelation. She had a choice: she could retreat to safe complacence, or she could fight to reshape the system that had wronged so many. Fight or flight, she whispered under her breath, voicing the gravity of her dilemma. The only way forward is transparency, Jake, she said, eyes blazing with resolve. We must expose this for what it is, not hide behind it. We can't continue to be complicit in the pain of those who rely on this company. The tension between them crystallized into something palpable. She saw her own reflection in Jake's eyes, fear intermingled with respect, perhaps even admiration for her courage. But was it enough? All right, he finally replied, a flicker of defiance igniting within his demeanor. But if we're doing this, we do it right. We gather evidence, bring in others who can corroborate, and plan our moves. It's not just about uncovering the truth, it's living the truth. Emma nodded, realizing that this moment marked a turning point in her journey. No longer a passive participant, she was taking the reins of her destiny. Yet in the same breath of hope lay uncertainty. The enemy now was a complex web woven through the very fabric of the corporate culture. The mission ahead stood fraught with peril, an open battlefield where moral compass and cunning strategy would dictate the outcome. What alliances would they need to forge, and what sacrifices would be demanded? As the possibility of retaliation loomed large in her thoughts, a new urgency took hold. She understood that their fate was a delicate operation with no clear path to victory. Emma's pursuit of integrity had a price, and she was just beginning to grasp the depths of commitment required. But as determination swelled in her, an unsettling question lingered: was Jake genuinely committed, or would his fear ultimately pull him back into complacency? The stakes had escalated both personally and professionally. Little did she know that the imminent challenges would grip her in unexpected ways. The fight for the truth had ignited a fire within, yet embers of doubt glimmered in the shadows, foretelling a struggle that would change her life irrevocably. Emma's journey had only just begun, and soon she would face a decision that would demand everything she had and everything she feared. What dangers awaited her, and would she ultimately emerge stronger or be consumed by the very conflict she dared to confront? The cool air in the office felt suddenly suffocating as the implications of their conversation sunk deeper into Emma's mind. She needed to act, but clarity was often elusive amid the whirlwind of anxiety and adrenaline. Standing up, she began pacing the room, her heels echoing with each deliberate step. The soft hum of the air conditioning seemed to fade into a backtrack of her racing thoughts. She couldn't let Jake's trepidation hold her back. "What's our next move?" she asked, her voice stronger now, fueled by a burning resolve. Jake leaned back in his chair, the tension replacing the uncertainty in his features. "We need to infiltrate further, gather documentation that isn't going to just disappear before we get to show it to someone who can help." A knot twisted in Emma's stomach. She felt the weight of their task, a clandestine operation cloaked in danger, built on the fragile trust between her and Jake. The risks were tangible, amplified by the stakes of potentially exposing individuals who wielded power within the company. "Do we start with our own department? See what others have found?" "Exactly. We need to find those who might share our concerns." "Trust is a currency in this kind of game," Jake responded, yet doubt fleeted through his tones, an uncertainty she couldn't afford to overlook. Emma paused, her mind racing ahead. Trust. The word lingered uncomfortably between them. Could she lean on Jake, or had he hidden depths of self-preservation that could silently undermine their efforts? And what if they don't want to take the risk? She pressed, her instinct to challenge his calm facade rising. They might not. But if we frame the conversation right, show them there's an opportunity for us to regain integrity. His voice trailed off, but she understood. The hope of a fresh alliance hung thickly in the air. With each passing moment, her nervous energy transformed into strategic focus. Emma realized she had a distinctive capability, the ability to read the room, to parse out motives and insecurities. It had served her well during negotiations, but could it sustain her through this daunting crusade? "Okay, let us map it out," she said, her voice firm as she seized control of the direction. "We'll approach those close to our projects, see who's reliable, and gauge their willingness to support us. We need multiple points of corroboration to strengthen our case." Jake watched her closely, something like admiration flickering in his eyes. "I'll gather background information on the people we can reach out to. I trust your instincts with the dynamics." The weight on her shoulders felt a little lighter, perhaps they could build something meaningful together. As they mapped out their initial steps, doubts returned swiftly, gnawing at her confidence. What if their coworkers were too entrenched in the system? Would they want to expose their own culpability? Emma caught herself faltering momentarily but steeled her resolve. She couldn't afford to be paralyzed by fear anymore. After they devised a tentative plan, Emma leaned back in her chair, a bead of sweat forming at her temple. "Do you think we can really change anything?" she asked, her voice softer now. A question cloaked in desperation. "I have to believe we can," Jake replied genuinely, though the worry still lingered in his expression. "Then we have to be prepared for a backlash," she warned. "This could go sideways very quickly." The threat of retaliation was ever present, but it paled beside the moral imperative of their journey now. As Emma turned to leave, Rupert, the office's IT manager, stepped into view, a knowing smile on his lips. "You two look like you're up to something. You know, secrets have a way of becoming visible sooner than expected, right?" Emma's pulse quickened, a warning or an ally? Either way, it signaled that her resolve to unveil corruption might have unintended repercussions. The clock was ticking, the stakes only rising. What unexpected allies or hidden threats would they encounter along the way? The fire in her belly ignited again. Emma took a deep breath, ready to fight the demons and ask herself, was she truly prepared to face the beast they were about to awaken? The path ahead would demand unwavering strength and perhaps call her to confront a darker side she had yet to acknowledge. Emma had always believed in preparing for every contingency. Her mind raced with potential scenarios, each more precarious than the last. After leaving Jake's office, she settled at her desk, surrounded by the familiar chaos of paperwork and flickering screens. But today, the desk felt alien, a battlefield littered with deceptive calm and hidden intentions. As she sifted through the routine emails, a pulse of urgency spurred her. She had to act quickly, and that meant leveraging the very network she had built over the years. She began typing an email to colleagues within her department, framing it subtly. "Let us discuss our project outcomes over coffee next week. I think there's room for improvement, and I'd love to hear your insights." The mere act of sending that email prickled her with both excitement and uncertainty. This was more than a casual coffee chat, it was a tactical move positioned to draw out potential allies. She couldn't shake the anxiety that close collaboration with Jake might hinder her professional judgment. Trusting him felt like stepping onto a tightrope with no safety net. As the hours dragged on, Emma couldn't shake Rupert's lingering gaze from her mind. She replayed their brief encounter, tallying the implications of his cryptic words. If their actions were to become visible, what ramifications awaited them? The potential fallout from exposing corruption now seemed glaringly real, looming just beyond the horizon. The next day, she met with her small group of trusted associates. Over steaming cups of coffee, Emma shared snippets of her observations, carefully gauging their reactions. Sydney, a junior analyst with a reputation for her whistleblower instincts, leaned in closer, her eyes locked on Emma's. "I've felt uneasy about our data projections lately. There's something off about the process. I wouldn't mind digging into that." Emma's heart raced. Sydney was precisely the kind of ally she needed, courageous, sharp, and willing to challenge the status quo. They discussed their concerns in hushed tones, the stakes immediately palpable. The excitement of a shared purpose ignited her confidence. This wasn't just about surviving the current situation but transforming it. As they strategized, Emma sketched their findings on a small notepad. Every insight brought them closer to dismantling the layers of deceit. But with each revelation, she felt the shadow of doubt niggle at her resolve. What if she wasn't ready for the repercussions? Uncovering wrongdoing might spark ire from the higher-ups, potent enough to derail her future. Later that evening, she reviewed notes from the previous meetings, connected dots between corrupted practices and their impact on morale. Her intrinsic ability to decode human behavior had its roots in years spent navigating corporate politics. Yet she had often held back, unsure of her authority to challenge established norms. The subconscious urge to remain in the background was fading, replaced by a fervent desire to step into the light. Emma reflected on how far she had come from the timid employee she once was. Standing at this crossroads of moral action demanded her to confront not just the corporate corruption that enveloped her but also her lingering fears and insecurities. The pen hovered over the pages of her notepad. Could she draft a more formal proposal to dissect these issues further? This shift from instinctive reactions to calculated strategy was both thrilling and terrifying. Just as she picked up her phone to text Jake about their progress, a sharp knock at her door pulled her attention. It swung open to reveal Jake, his expression a mixture of urgency and apprehension. "We need to talk. Now." His tone sent a jolt through Emma. This was at the moment where everything could change. The revelation behind those doors could catapult them into a new phase, but would the risk outweigh the reward? Would they find the strength within themselves to follow through, knowing what lay ahead could force them to confront their darkest fears? She took a deep breath, bracing for whatever curveball was about to come. The reality of their quest was unfolding, and she was determined to meet the challenge head-on. Emma could feel her heart racing as Jake stepped fully into her office, the door closing behind him with a sense of finality. The dim light cast shadows on his face, but she could see the urgency etched in his features. This wasn't just an ordinary conversation, it was a turning point, an intersection of risk and possibility. "Emma," he began, taking a seat across from her, his voice low. "We need to be upfront. I've been getting whispers about higher-ups getting nervous. If they suspect that we're looking into things, it could become a bigger problem for both of us." The chill of his words settled over her like ice. Emma felt the weight of their precarious situation pressing down, the enormity of what they were about to undertake looming ever larger in her mind. She paused, trying to gather her thoughts, grappling with the conflicting emotions swirling within her. She had long been the conscientious employee, the one who followed the rules. But this was different, this was about ethics, integrity, and perhaps a chance to reshape the very foundation of the department she worked in. "What do you think we should do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Jake leaned forward, hands clasped, eyes locked on hers. "I think we need to dig deeper, but we have to be careful. If we're going to bring this to light, we need undeniable evidence. Anything less will be dismissed as a personal vendetta or misinterpretation." His determination sparked something within her, igniting a fire she hadn't realized was merely smoldering beneath the surface. Emma nodded, her resolve crystallizing. "Right. We need to look at the data closely, cross-reference it with past reports, maybe even reach out to some of the old employees who might have insights." "Exactly," Jake replied, a hint of admiration flashing in his expression. "But Emma, we need to keep this under wraps. Only those directly involved must know. We can't afford leaks at this stage." Emma stood up, suddenly energized by the direction of their conversation. "I can contact Sydney. She's already expressed concerns about the data and she's discreet. The less information we share, the better." "Good call," Jake said, the ghost of a smile ghosting his lips. "I'll take care of reaching out to others in finance. They might have access to records we don't normally get to see." As they strategized, Emma felt an exhilarating shift in the atmosphere of the office. Gone was the quiet tension filled with uncertainty, it had been replaced by a palpable sense of purpose. Here was a chance for her to transform from a passive observer into an active force for change, a chance to defy the creeping shadows of corruption that had permeated their workplace. But then doubt crept back in. What would happen if they failed? Would it cost her job? Would it cost Jake his? The risks felt vast, but the potential rewards of justice, fairness, and perhaps even a newfound reputation as a leader were equally compelling. As they wrapped up their plan, a deeper realization washed over Emma. They were no longer just trying to survive, they were choosing to fight. Each passing moment strengthened her belief in her instincts and her own capacity for leadership. "Emma," Jake said, standing up and looking her in the eye. "I really believe we can do this. But we have to be ready for anything. Don't underestimate those at the top." She nodded, her heartbeat steadying at the sense of unity developing between them. "We will not back down. I'm ready to take this on." With his departure, Emma sank back into her chair, thoughts racing as she envisioned the tangled web of deceit they were prepared to untangle. But as ideas took shape within her mind, she felt the nerves return. Was she truly equipped for this? Suddenly, an email notification dinged on her screen, interrupting her spiraling thoughts. It was from one of the senior executives, a request for a meeting regarding project updates. Emma's stomach tightened. Would this be a hurdle or a distraction? Caught between anticipation and dread, she wondered what the next move would bring. What would she have to confront in that meeting, and could she maintain the resolve she had just discovered? The opportunity for growth awaited, but so did the potential for failure. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the dual weight of fear and determination once more, knowing that she had to face the very foundation of her professional identity. The moment for truth was arriving, and she could either step up or step aside. Emma stared at the email, her mind racing with the implications of the meeting. It was easy to sit here and strategize with Jake, but now the reality of facing higher management loomed ahead like a thundercloud. Could she truly present herself as a competent force, or would her nerves betray her? She pulled herself upright, refocusing her thoughts. The meeting wasn't just a challenge, it was an opportunity to position herself as a leader. She'd spent years being the reliable worker, the one who managed projects efficiently, never crossing the line into contentious territory. But, as she now understood, this issue demanded a different approach, one that transcended the realities of routine office politics. The next morning, Emma dressed carefully, her outfit chosen not just for professionalism but for empowerment. She wanted to create an aura of confidence and assertiveness. As she approached the conference room, her heart began to race again, but this time she harnessed that adrenaline. It sharpened her focus, giving clarity to her intentions. She entered the room, finding her colleagues seated around the table, their expressions varying from casual disinterest to cautious engagement. The executive, a stoic presence with years of authority etched into his features, gestured for her to begin as he scanned his notes. Emma took a deep breath, centering herself. "Thank you for gathering on such short notice," she started, her voice firm and clear. The subtle nod of approval from her supervisor ignited a flicker of confidence within her. "I'd like to update you on our project's recent data discrepancies and the potential implications for our department." She briefed them on her findings, weaving in facts and projected outcomes, her years of meticulous analysis shining through. Every word was intentional, aimed at demonstrating her thorough understanding of the project and the potential ramifications of the issues she was highlighting. But, as the meeting progressed, her senior colleague belittled her efforts, his tone dismissive. "Emma, these are routine anomalies. I suggest you focus on the bigger picture instead of diving into details we're all aware of." A wave of resentment surged, but she quelled it with urgency. "Sir, I believe these anomalies indicate a critical issue that could lead to larger financial repercussions if overlooked. I'm not just presenting problems, I'm advocating for proactive solutions." Something shifted in the room. Emma noticed raised eyebrows, a mix of surprise and intrigue. She felt the tension rising. Challenges like these ignited a spark. Her former reticence began to dissolve, replaced by the real prospect of leadership. The anger she had felt transformed into a powerful determination to be heard. "Let us explore the data more closely," she continued, detailing a strategy for consolidation and a follow-up on the financial audits. Emma discovered strength in her own voice, navigating the conversation with a finesse she hadn't known she possessed. Each point she made was reinforced by evidence, empowering her presence at the table. By the time the meeting concluded, she felt an unfamiliar warmth of fulfillment, her heart still racing, but now with exhilaration. They had opened the floor to her ideas, allowing her the chance to contribute meaningfully, a clear indicator that she had shifted from the shadow of complacency into the light of active involvement. As she stepped out of the conference room, her mind was still buzzing. She had shown initiative and rallied attention. But with this newfound confidence came the stark realization that not everyone would welcome her ascent. She made herself a target to those threatened by change. On her way back to her office, her phone buzzed an email notification from Jake. A single line made her pause. "We've got a problem." The excitement of her small victory faded, replaced by a gnawing sense of urgency. What could be waiting just around the corner, and how prepared was she to face it? Now, more than ever, she had to consolidate her efforts and stay sharp. The stakes were escalating dramatically, and this was no longer just about her personal growth. The very integrity of her workplace was at risk, and every decision she made from here on would be scrutinized. With her heart pounding again, Emma realized she was about to confront the ultimate challenge. Would she rise to meet it, or would the shadows lurking within her organization extinguish the light she had just begun to ignite? The email from Jake simmered in Emma's mind like a warning bell, amplifying her sense of urgency. "We've got a problem." The words haunted her as she settled in at her desk, her usual methods of methodical organization faltering under the weight of anticipation and anxiety. What problem could Jake be referring to? Was it a fallout from the meeting? Or did it stem from the risks they had been discussing regarding the project? Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, but her thoughts began racing unchecked, spiraling into what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. She had already risked her newfound credibility, stepping into an assertive role that could attract both allies and adversaries alike. Steeling herself, she decided to confront whatever was brewing head-on. A quick examination of her surroundings revealed a fractured office atmosphere. Colleagues who had once been amicable now eyed her with a blend of intrigue and suspicion. She could feel the shift. The very warmth of her recent triumph was now a chill whispered by the winds of division and distrust. In realizing her potential, she had inadvertently ignited jealousy among those who preferred the status quo. With every passing minute and no further word from Jake, her resolve hardened. Maybe it was time to proactively address the situation instead of waiting passively for the problem to be presented. She grabbed her notepad, jotting thoughts on how to clarify not just her findings from the meeting but also her intentions moving forward. Empowerment through clarity, she declared to herself as she began drafting an email to the team, inviting them for a brainstorming session. She believed that by engaging her colleagues in open dialogue, she could foster collaboration and diffuse any brewing resentment. Roughly half an hour into composing her message, another alert distracted her. A new email from Jake flashed on her screen. "Need to meet ASAP, serious situation." Her pulse quickened. What could it be? She wasted no time. A few cautious steps led her to Jake's office, where he sat hunched over his desk, eyes dark with concentration. When he looked up at her entrance, his expression revealed more than a little uncertainty. "Thanks for coming, Emma," he said, motioning her toward the chair across from him. "We've hit a snag with the data integration. I thought we had things under control, but we might have a critical oversight due to the anomalies you raised." Emma's heart sunk, yet simultaneously swelled with purpose. Now was not the time to retreat. She could feel a potent mix of dread and adrenaline surge within her as the line between fear and opportunity blurred. The work she had started was far more significant than she had initially realized. "What do we need to do?" she asked, her voice steadying itself despite the whirlwind inside her. Jake's brow furrowed in contemplation. "We need to reevaluate our approach. I'm already overwhelmed with the fallout. If this breaks, it'll affect the entire team, not to mention our standing with upper management." "Let us create a task force," Emma replied, the idea firing up her instincts. "We can pull in the other departments to ensure nothing falls through the cracks. I'll lead the effort, coordinate the communication, and ensure we stay ahead of this." For the first time, Jake looked impressed. "Are you sure you want to take the lead on this, especially now?" "There are a lot of egos involved," he warned. Emma felt a rush of exhilaration. "If not me, then who? I'm tired of letting others dictate my path." I'm ready to push through whatever impending complications arise. Alright, let us dig in together. As they rolled up their sleeves and began brainstorming priorities, Emma found herself leaning into her instincts, feeling a surge of empowerment flowing through her. Perhaps she was ready not only to lead but also to face the shadows that lurked in the corners of her workplace. As the meeting concluded, a sense of purpose enveloped her. She had stepped out of the fear, embraced a new vision, and was no longer just a participant in the game, she was a player. But the stakes were higher than ever. With the challenge evolving into a full-scale crisis, she knew the clock was ticking. What unexpected obstacles awaited her? And would she prove resilient enough to turn potential disaster into triumph? Emma emerged from the whirlwind of the past month transformed and resolute. No longer a hesitant worker merely mired in self-doubt, she had shed her past layers and donned the mantle of leadership. The final summation of her journey crystallized in her mind as she stood before her assembled team, eyes bright with determination. The impending presentation to upper management represented not just a crossroads for her department, but a defining moment in her own ascension. As she organized her notes, Emma recalled the spiraling emotions that had threatened to engulf her during every uncertainty and alarm bell ringing, demanding her to step into the unknown. Today, she began, her voice confident yet approachable, we stand at the precipice of not just analyzing data but fortifying our integrity and advancing our practices. Each word echoed her conviction, and the moment she took to assess the room measuring the weight of their gazes deflated her lingering anxiety. As she began illustrating the findings from their investigation, the initial skepticism faded into focused attention. Emma recounted the analytical breakdown her team had undertaken, conveying challenging concepts with an infectious enthusiasm that gradually gave way to an enveloping energy in the room. The shift was palpable, she could see respect blossoming in the eyes of her colleagues. What we discovered represents more than anomalies, it reveals systemic issues that we cannot simply dismiss. We have an opportunity to reshape our practices, and stand united against unethical behaviors. Emma felt the call to action ripple through the gathering, her awakening for integral change sparking resolve among her coworkers. After delivering her spotlight presentation, the ensuing discussions brimmed with vigor, threads of collaboration woven tighter as insights flooded forth. Senior management's initial skepticism eroded swiftly, metamorphosing into recognition as they understood the depth of Emma's efforts and insight. Later that evening, as Emma left the building, satisfaction coursed through her. She had not only wielded her knowledge but had also consolidated her growth into something tangible, a recognition of competence among the ranks few ever achieve. Reflexively, she checked her phone, noting a message from Jake, "Incredible work today. Proud to stand with you." As they celebrated their successes late into the night, it felt natural to reflect on the challenges faced along the way. Years of feeling trapped evolved into moments of powerful individuality. She had not merely navigated corporate treacheries, she had challenged them. In standing for integrity, she had unearthed her convictions, transformed her professional demeanor, and, importantly, reinstated her sense of self-worth. Each completed initiative and collaborative strategy reinforced her standing as an effective leader. With recognition came opportunities, vital proposals to innovate practices awaited approval on her desk. Tenacity and vision, once hindered and muted under layers of responsibility and doubt, now radiated strength as leadership positions opened one by one. And in this newly found confidence, bestowed with profound satisfaction, Emma acknowledged that success was more than mere accolades. It was the embodiment of resilience, the courage to challenge the status quo, and her unyielding commitment to authenticity. She proved to herself that she could conquer far more than she ever imagined. At the end of her transformative journey, she finally embraced the recognition of her capability. With a burgeoning sense of pride and fulfillment, Emma stood tall, ready to forge ahead beyond the constraints of her past self. This was her moment, one she had prepared for in silence and uncertainty. A tangible beginning rooted in personal achievement, the path of forthright mentorship leading her to a future that beckoned with possibility. Now, it's your turn to take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this climax. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.